There we go. Hello. Today is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to talk about some engineering topics. And last night I was working with max metricing OSPF on an Arista device. And honestly, I was a little too tired to make coherent sentences and thoughts while I was going through it. So instead, I captured my screen and I figured I could run through the screen caps and then talk about like what I was doing and hopefully make some sense of like the just the weirdness that I found with like max metricing and removing it and things like that. If you've never played with it before, it can kind of be a little awkward. So I thought there'd be some value in that. So we have right now um, we have kind of split traffic going on. We have 4% going in to PO1 and then 10% going out. So the traffic generator here is set at a 10% line rate. I'm max metricing uh, the OSPF, and I'm doing a whole bunch on here. I'm including router LSA, external LSA, the stuff, basically everything, and I'm trying to set it to this maximum value of you know I never read this number. It's a big number. So 16,777,215. So that's the intent, is to set the OSPF routes to a max metric so that the traffic would shift, and this input rate, we're looking for the input rate to dive down. So I'm just resetting and looking for the input rate to dive down, and I'm noticing that it's not dying down. It's not going down. So I'm like, okay, what is going on here? I'm setting the max metric appropriately. It should be decreasing in the input rate here. So this is when I review the configuration. Yeah, so there's different ways to call the configuration if you're dealing with Arista, NXOS, whatever. You have to kind of get the syntax right to call up the specific config. For here, I'm like reviewing the configuration because I tried max metricing a couple of times, and I'm reviewing a code version right now. So I'm trying to see if it like has something to do with that. But yeah, and we're gonna stop right here. And can you tell, like, you should be able to pause and see if you spot the configuration that was screwed up. It is a configuration issue on here, so if you could pause the screen, give it a little go, or just listen to me ramble a little bit more. We'll see if your guess is correct just by doing like a cursory glance of this config. Did you get it right? Let's ask that question. There's a couple of things in this configuration that are incorrect, and the reason why the max metric didn't actually apply onto the interface. So we're going to review those real quick. The first thing here is the statement itself. If you look at this max metric statement, all of the correct things are here in the beginning. But then as you go on, you could see the on startup wait for BGP uh, statements. So basically, this is going to max metric the OSPF routes until BGP is established, and it's going to set that metric to 65 or 16 million, which I can see here. I'm like reviewing both the V4 V6 and wondering why it's like I can clearly see my issue here with the V4, which is I'm including the on startup and I'm waiting for BGP in the V4 metric, and on V6 I'm actually max metricing out like what my intent was. So that's a simple thing. So I know it, and then I look for the metric, and then I'm gonna go back in here into the router OSPF configuration. I'm gonna reapply it because I'm tired and I probably didn't see the on startup wait for BGP yet. Let's see. Let's go, Nate. Okay, so here's where I go in and I put up like I take the actual metric that I'm putting into OSPF and I review it again. I'm like, okay, there's something odd here. Let me just type it out. And that's one thing. Like when you copy and paste the commands, my big face is in the way. When you copy and paste the command, let me just do this. Boom. When you copy and paste the command, like sometimes you're not being intentional with what you're writing. You're just kind of like copying it over. And what I had been doing was copying and pasting on the max metric onto on startup wait for BGP over and over and over again. So when I actually sat down and wrote out my max metric policy that I wanted to apply onto this router, then we actually saw that traffic start to drop. So here I'm just applying a quick show IP route VRF public onto OSPF, and we can see that the metric is actually being applied onto these routes going up. And now that we have the correct max metricing work, the traffic rate itself is dropping, and then we can actually view this on Arista pretty well by using their watch commands for counters. So you can set a watch to see exactly like how that's applied, and that command's right here. So it's the watch one diff show ink counters rate and piping, like basically piping, and Z are the tags, and that is a really cool command to be able to just like see the incremental counters that are being applied onto the interfaces. So if we want to now remove it, I'll give you my glorious face again. I'll put it up in the upper right. That way you're not, the commands aren't being hidden. We go back into the router OSPF1 process under the VRF public, and we negate the command that I had applied. So we're going to negate the max metricing. So we're going to watch, and we're going to see if the traffic dies down or ramps back up, rather. So we're like expecting to see traffic be restored to the link, which it is restored to the link. Now we're checking our routes here, and we're noticing that the metric, the 65535, is being applied to these routes, and I'm wondering why that's happening, because we negated the max metric command, but we still see like kind of a high metric within the route, and that's when I realized that the negation command actually includes like the default max metric is for router LSA. So none of those directly connected routes will be like propagated without that metric by default. So we're still seeing traffic increase, which is cool, but we're still seeing that high metric be applied to the routes themselves, like the connected routes themselves. So we're going to restore traffic levels here, and then we're going to go down and we're going to verify two ways for traffic. This is the way I'm used to seeing it, is the show PO1 pipe include rate, which that does a rate duration over a set period of time. So you're not going to be able to identify like sudden spikes with that, but it's a good trend analysis to see if traffic is returning. So we're seeing here that the cost is still super high. So this is when I apply the on startup wait for BGP variables to see those costs go back down. and then I forget that I have everything in a VRF for a second, and then I just realize like what's going on, which is my BGP is established. My BGP is established, therefore my metric is my cost is being applied correctly to the route. So me and my tired state like put together a couple of notes, which is make sure you remove any max metric configuration before applying the new max metric configuration. And that's just to say, hey, you don't know what's currently in the box right now, so you don't know if like what you're going to apply is going to conflict at all with the router. Yeah, so basically just check the router configuration. Max LSA like didn't actually hurt us in this situation with what we wanted to do, but it's just a good note to check your work, check your config, make sure that like nothing is being applied that you don't want applied. And then this is me just running through it again. Basically, reapplying the max metric onto the link. I'm trying to zoom in with this video so that it doesn't look like a tiny router, but I'm like screwing myself up because then you guys aren't seeing what I'm talking about. And then, of course, check your work and verify the traffic states. So we want to be able to come down here and verify our work. And then, as you can see, this is me just like running through, making sure that that cost gets applied. And that the input rate has dropped. So after all is said and done, I did go back, reapply the max metric, re-verify the traffic rates, and then I let it tick down to 0%, which took about 5 minutes for the show at PO1. So, and boom. So I hope that was interesting. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. I just wanted to kind of showcase a little bit about what I do on the engineering side of the house and like kind of the questions that I think through as I'm reviewing these protocols. So if you have any questions, put them down in the comments below. If something didn't make sense and we should like if we want to dive deeper into a topic, let me know. I just kind of wanted to show like what I typically do when I'm troubleshooting. This can take anywhere from 30 seconds to hours depending on like the protocols and what I'm running into, what I'm experiencing. What I have found this year really is like a lot of times, you know, we'll go and we'll like quickly ask for help, for clarification, and I've been doing that for my entire career. Is basically I run up to a certain point, and then when I don't know something, I'll go and quickly ask for help. And what I've been focusing on recently is not asking for help, which doesn't make any like doesn't make a whole lot of sense until like what I like to do is like not ask for help and then instead like do the research myself to figure out what's going on with the protocols. And that's kind of like making me have like a higher understanding, at least in my brain it does. I don't know if I could shortchange that knowledge by asking a bunch of people a bunch of different questions, but for me myself, I want to shore up like my knowledge areas, and instead of like just jumping for one of those lifelines, I instead like read the vendor documentation. I'll go and read the RFC or white paper that's dealing with that specific technology, and then I'll come back to like what's going on and what I'm seeing, and I'll make adjustments within my lab, and then I see how that changes the environment. So yes, if you're 100% stuck, roadblocked, ask for help. But if you want to completely understand something, just break it back down. So yeah, I mean, sometimes when you break it back down and then rebuild up the configuration to your knowledge, and then if you get stuck, if you go and research something, you might be able to figure it out and then have a better understanding overall of like what's going on within the topology. I hope that made sense. I hope that wasn't a ramble, but let me know if you have any have any questions or concerns or whatever, and I will see you in the next one.